Hi everyone, and welcome to this webinar on the top 10 uses for frankincense essential oil. As you'll find throughout the course of this presentation, this is one of my favorite oils and one of those oils that you feel you can use for almost any situation. I'm Stephanie Pearson, and I'm the owner of Daily Nectar Essentials. You may know me from my online Facebook group or from Daily Nectar Essentials business page. So just to remind everyone, when I give these presentations, I like to be clear that the materials presented are intended for educational purposes and are for use in promoting wellness in normal, healthy individuals. Please do not use essential oils in place of medical care for the treatment of a symptom or medical condition. Okay, so frankincense, we're going to talk a little bit about where it comes from first before we get into the top 10 uses. It's sometimes referred to as oleibonum, and it comes from this small shrubby boswellia tree, which has white flowers and is pictured below. It comes actually from a milky white resin that is extracted by cutting into the bark of the tree. And you can see he's doing that below, but after he cuts into it and pulls out the oozing resin, it is allowed to harden for 3 days, and this is what it looks like when it's hardened. It is referred to as tears because of obvious reasons. This resin is then steam distilled to produce the aromatic essential oil that we know to have many benefits. This plant comes from very specific regions in the world. It grows in African and Arabian regions, including Yemen, Oman, Somalia, and Ethiopia. Oman is actually the best known and most ancient source of frankincense, and from there it's been traded and shipped to many other places around the Mediterranean, India, and China for many thousands of years. And the ancient traders walked on the frankincense trail, which you'll see there with the black star beginning in Oman. And they used pack camels, and they walked the length of the Arabian Peninsula to the Holy Lands and then shipped frankincense to empires across the ancient world. And if you'd like to know more about the frankincense trail, on YouTube there's a series with an intrepid traveler, Kate Humble, where she follows the frankincense trail across these regions and through modern Middle Eastern world. It's pretty interesting. And here's a picture of one of the most rare forms of frankincense resin, and this is called Royal Hokhari, and it's from Oman. Hokhari is collected from the very youngest saplings, and it's specific to a very rugged region, which is in the Dhofar Desert and reserved for the royalty, which is usually the Sultan of Oman. This is the type of frankincense believed to have been given to the Christ child, and only certain tribes are allowed to harvest it legally. It's said to have a euphoric effect when burned as incense. So this is not the kind of frankincense that most of us have access to, and in fact, some people believe as much as 95% of the frankincense essential oil market is synthetic frankincense. It's a very special plant. It's expensive to buy the essential oil, so much of it is just a synthetic knockoff version or otherwise adulterated. But many of us who have access to high quality essential oil will be looking at usually a blend between several different species of boswellia, and here are a few of them. There are quite a few more than this as well, but these can have really nice effect when blended. Frankincense was burned traditionally as incense and used in ancient rituals. The word frankincense comes from the term franc-incense, which means quality incense in French. It was used also for its anti-inflammatory properties and for a range of maladies from toothaches to leprosy. So they had a lot of different uses for this. To me, one of the more interesting ones is that the 18th dynasty ancient Egyptian queen, Hatshepsut, I don't know if I'm saying that wrong, but she used to grind charred frankincense into kohl eyeliner, and this became very popular, and it's also the first recorded use of the resin. So around that time, after she started doing this, mothers would apply this kohl, frankincense to infants' eyes after birth in order to strengthen the child's eyes. And we still do this after birth, putting not frankincense, but things that are antimicrobial around the baby's eyes. So this is something that was probably there for a reason, more of a health reason. Frankincense has also been associated with many different religions over the years, especially with the Christian religion, because it was one of the first gifts given to Jesus by the wise men. So it was at that time in history believed to have been worth its weight in gold. Also has been burned as offering to the gods and still to this day is. But research shows that the usage was intended to drive away evil spirits to many different cultures, including Egyptians, Greeks, Romans, French, and Asian cultures and in their rituals. So, and it is very purifying. I'll get more into that. But one other interesting use is that Hippocrates actually suggested burning frankincense resin during the Black Plague in London in 1665. And some people say that this was the beginning of the Catholic Church's burning frankincense. Of course, this tradition goes back many thousands of years in other cultures, but in European culture, this could be true. Frankincense is considered a tonic, and it's considered to benefit many different systems operating in the body. These include digestive, respiratory, nervous, and excretory. So it's actually going to just help your body function at a higher level. And one of the ways it does this is to help with absorption of nutrients and to strengthen the immune system. So you can see this list here, and it actually could be longer, but some of the main actions are the ones listed below: analgesic, antibacteria, anti-inflammatory, it's carminative, antidepressant, astringent, cytophylactic, and digestive, diuretic, expectorant, sedative, and immune boosting, and anti-carcinogestic. So we'll talk more about these as we get through the top 10 uses, but one of the things that I hear over and over again is how many constituents the plant has that have been identified, and many of which are medicinal. It has over 200 different constituents. So compared to some other plants that we use, this is a lot, and that's one of the reasons it's so very versatile. So I wrote below, if I were stuck on a desert island, I would bring, well, obviously frankincense and probably lavender, because those are two of the most versatile essential oils to have. So it blends nicely with other plants, and I just listed a few there below, but florals, woods, spices, citruses, and then also a lot of people like it with patchouli, clary sage, rosemary, basil, vetiver, and my favorite to blend it with is peppermint, and I actually use that to help wake my brain up when I'm tired at night and I'm teaching, or I have to pull an all-nighter for some reason, like with my kids, something going on like that. It just helps to wake you up without being overly stimulating. Now, for the top 10 uses. Number 1 use is for supporting the mood. And one of the beneficial properties in the oil that helps us do this is the high percentage of the monoterpene limonene. And limonene has been studied extensively for help with anxiousness and depressed mood, and also for stress, for sleeplessness, things like that. So frankincense is known to help induce a feeling of mental peace, relaxation, and satisfaction. It's sedative, calming, and uplifting, and can really help with things like impatience and irritability, and as mentioned, with feeling anxious or feeling down, or being in a depressed mood. Obviously, for clinical anxiety and depression, please see a doctor, but for any type, you can always use this as an adjunct to more traditional methods of approaching those things. And also, all of us once in a while will have feelings of anxiousness or apprehension or feelings of being blue. So I encourage you to try this. I love this oil for these purposes. It really helps to calm and ground people, and it actually has been shown to slow and deepen the breathing and really support stress relief. It's helpful for fear and stress during pregnancy and in childbearing as well. I diffuse it with orange in a birth or labor room before the birth happens, and it helps to uplift and cleanse the room. I also think of it as the Be Here Now oil, because one of the ways it helps to curb some of those feelings I was talking about is because it brings you into the present moment, where hopefully everything is actually really calm and okay, but people might be apprehensive about the future or worried about the past. So being brought into the moment and grounded can really help to take you away from those feelings. It can help babies to adapt to the world. And also it helps people at the end of life when they're needing to be calm and connected, and because it's bringing them into the room and helping them connect more with others. So I wrote here just a few really simple things I blend frankincense with for different feelings: for anxiousness with peppermint, for depressed mood with orange, for sleeplessness with geranium. You can do so many other blends in those, but those are a few that I just use in my daily life. So be sure when you're using essential oils for mood that you can smell them. This is really important because they need to get to your limbic system in your brain. So you can use a diffuser or a spray or a massage application, but this isn't one I would just put a little on the bottom of my feet and put my shoes on for. I would definitely have it somewhere I can smell it. Use number 2 is for prayer or meditation. Frankincense has been shown to have profound psychological and spiritual benefits. It's been long recognized by religious and spiritual traditions world over, and its centering effect allows people to focus clearly, which is an ideal aid to meditation, contemplation, prayer, helping to cease mental chatter and still the mind. And it may come in a large part from the high levels of sesquiterpenes in frankincense, which support healthy brain function. So that can bring better focus. It's also used with peppermint in the transition phase of labor. And I bring this up here because that is a time where you're really needing to connect with something, whether it's the present moment or, if you're spiritual and wanting to connect with God during your labor. But peppermint and frankincense together will bring you into the moment and help get you through a tough time like transition phase. So it's also known for protection and purification and can be used by anointing to the third eye or the top of the head or as a diffusion or a spray. And meditative blends often will include things like sandalwood, myrrh, cedarwood, clary sage, vetiver, lime, or rose. Use number 3 is for healthy skin. So frankincense has many properties that make it an important essential oil for skin. Its action as a cytophylactic means that it stimulates the regeneration of cells. It's also antiseptic and astringent. So it's thought to keep cells and tissues healthy. Think of it for things like scarring, stretch marks during pregnancy, acne, rash recovery, and for lifting and tightening aging skin or dry skin. You can put a few drops of this in a night cream that you use, or you can make it a head for an everyday skincare by using 6 drops of frankincense to about an ounce of carrier oil and putting it on your skin. So yeah, I think some people also use it as a tonifier with something like witch hazel. You can add it like that and put it on your skin. It's not just for faces, it's for anywhere in your skin where you'd like to feel that your cells are getting more support. And then I decided to put this in a separate category from healthy skin because wound healing really goes to a deeper level of healing. These properties are useful as well for skin healing. Again, that's the cytophylactic property that's believed to be helpful in stimulating healthy cell and tissue regeneration. So you can use this for open wounds. If you break your bones, using it with white fur can be really supportive in the healing process. And there's a fix they say to use about 1 part frankincense, 1 part white fur, and rub directly on the bone that is injured. And if you can't get to the bone because of a cast or bandage, you can rub it on the opposite arm or leg. And the injured bone has been shown to receive 65% of the benefit. This is called the sympathetic response. The body understands where the oil is needed and will send it to the recovering bone. So I think that's fascinating. The astringency of frankincense helps sometimes to stop bleeding. So this is another way that it's nice. I think of all the resins that we have, like myrrh and frankincense and sandalwood, as being sort of like a herbal band-aid because of they're more viscous than other oils and they can like form a seal over a wound. So you can experiment with that. And the antiseptic quality is useful for scrapes, cuts, postpartum healing. If there's a tear, I've read some research that it can be used just as well and effectively as an antiseptic as povidone iodine in healing from episiotomy surgery after birth. So this is a really strong action of this. You can also use it as a spray in sitz baths with lavender, melaleuca, and helichrysum. So I do like to blend these oils. Melaleuca is written down there below, I think. Oh, yes. Okay. So if you're going to use it for a wound, I definitely would use it topically. And whether you use a spray or an ointment would depend, like in that first picture there with the stitches, you might want to use a spray because you don't want to rub the skin and put any pressure on it. And then in the other picture there on the right, it might be fine to use it as an ointment at that point. So it's kind of sort of up to you about what phase you're at with that. Another use, number 5, is oral health. So this oil, again, has antiseptic qualities and also, I haven't gotten to it yet, but anti-inflammatory qualities, which can help with things like gingivitis, bad breath, cavities, toothache, mouth sores, other infections. So this is just ways you can use it at home to support what you're working on with your dentist and help to keep your mouth healthy. So you can actually, some people are into oil pulling. This is something you should read more about if you're going to do, but there's a lot of good instruction guides out there. but I would put 2 to 3 drops into something like coconut oil for oil pulling, or you can add a drop to a toothbrush or add it to your toothpaste and use it that way. The next uses that I'm getting into are going to involve taking the oils internally. So I wanted to take a moment to share how this is done. I haven't mentioned this yet, but I am using very, very high quality frankincense essential oil. This is not the synthetic version that I said was so popular. The oils that I use are from doTERRA and they're very high quality. They're tested for purity. So make sure if you're going to be using these anyway that is mentioned that you're using a high quality oil, because the low quality oils are really just for scent. They're not to help support any health conditions. So with internal use, you'll want to either put it in a capsule and swallow it, or you'll want to add it to water. I like to use honey for people because honey helps as an emulsifier to blend the essential oil in the tea or the water. You don't necessarily have to do this. Some people say that they feel fine not doing this. It just depends. If you're sensitive, you might want to use a little bit of warm water with honey and then add the essential oil to that. And you use about 1 drop per 4 ounces of water, or 2 to 4 drops in a capsule. There have been some good studies showing these not to harm mucous membranes. So, depending on what oil you're using, frankincense is more mild and gentle and should not cause any harm taken internally. You can email me if you have any more questions about this. But this is one of the reasons we take oils internally, is to help support the organs and detoxification and to tonify overall health. Reason number 6 is for digestion. Frankincense is used to support all kinds of digestive health, perhaps due to its high limonene content and also its actions as a carminative and anti-inflammatory. So some of the studies we've looked at have shown it to work similarly to enzymes by speeding up the digestion or even speeding up the production of enzymes. But however it's working, it's creating movement and it has a detoxifying effect. So this can help to produce bowel movements on time and just basically get rid of some of the junk that you don't need in your digestive tract. So some examples of use include pain and cramping in the stomach, PMS-related pains, constipation, symptoms of leaky gut syndrome, and then there are some chronic inflammatory bowel conditions that will benefit from adding this to the protocol you're already using. So in all of these cases, I would take a few drops internally, as mentioned before, but also use them topically, rubbing them into the intestines or the stomach or wherever you're having a feeling. It can even help flush water out of the abdomen because remember, it's astringent. So if bloating is caused by excess water, this can help decrease that and also increase urine production, which is another cleansing, getting rid of, and help to relax the muscles, the digestive tract, while improving circulation at the same time. So all these things are really important for digestive health. So do think of it as a tonic and something to use just for every day if you want your digestive system to work more optimally, or to use if you have like an acute situation where like, I'm constipated, you can use it in that situation as well. But I think people with ongoing digestive system issues will benefit from rubbing this into the abdomen every day, maybe taking a couple drops in water every day. Next, we'll talk about immune system support, and this is another reason I'm always happy to have a bottle of frankincense in my purse, because it's very helpful for immunity. So there are several constituents in frankincense that make it a useful aid in supporting immune health. Limonene, once again, alpha theogene, which is used for general immunity, and alpha-pinene, which is considered important for respiratory health. It's also an immune boosting tonic. So it can be used as an expectorant, which helps you to eliminate phlegm in the lungs, and also as just something protective against things that might be out there, keeping your immune system strong and protecting you. And remember, this was given to baby Jesus, who was born in a barn. So, thinking about having a cleansed environment might have been important. Studies have demonstrated frankincense to have immune enhancing abilities, and some studies have shown it to help destroy bacteria, viruses, and even some cancers. So thinking about supporting immunity at times of colds and conditions of the respiratory system, especially coughs, even sore throats. I've rubbed this onto my throat before. Sometimes I'll mix it with lemon when using it for immunity and gargle with it, or you can even put it in a mug and inhale it from a mug. And because it has these extra anti-inflammatory property to it, it's helpful for nasal passages that are congested, making it easier to breathe. Some people even use it if they have chronic, something like environmental allergies or issues with lung weakness. They use it on a regular basis. You can add a few drops to cloth and inhale it for respiratory benefits, or use it in a diffuser, or use it internally. But I really feel like rubbing it onto the chest and inhaling it from a mug are two of my favorite ways to use this one. And I did put a picture of a lung here because think of frankincense for lungs, and really think of anything from a tree. Like I mentioned, the alpha pinene, that has to do with coming from pine tree, the root of the word. So all of these trees, and the lungs sort of look like a tree. This is called the doctrine of signatures, where the plant looks a little like whatever it's working to support. So maybe that will help you to remember to use frankincense for respiration and support. Okay, so I've been mentioning inflammation, and there is research by the Cardiff University, and the scientists there found frankincense to aid in inhibiting the production of key inflammatory modules and helping to prevent the breakdown of cartilage tissues that causes these conditions. So some of the main active constituents of boswellia are the boswellic acids, and most importantly, the AKBA, acetyl 11 keto beta boswellic acid. So I'm just going to refer to that as AKBA, and you can read a lot about this if you have a good, look up some research sites like PubMed and aromaticscience.com, but it's basically been demonstrated to have significant immunomodulatory and inflammatory modulating effects in preclinical research. So this is best documented with an inflammatory mediator called 5-lipoxygenase 37. So some of you may know what that is and some of you may not, but the point is that there's some promising research here in that this is a good thing to add to your daily repertoire, sort of like turmeric is similar to this as well, where you can use it to help support your body as a whole. So this is another time where you want to think about, like, if your whole body feels like it might be under some inflammatory stress, taking this internally will really support you in that way. Whereas, like, if this woman has swollen ankles and some problems with her joints, not feeling good, like taking a foot bath for that would be more of a direct application. So whether you use it topically or internally sort of depends on what you're working with. You can also diffuse it and have good support with that, but putting some drops in a carrier oil and rubbing it into your muscles, your joints, your feet, your neck, and then thinking of it internally for things like bowel health and joint health, as well as using it topically for those things is a good idea. Cellular health. So again, we want to think about limonene and AKBA, which is relevant with regard to cellular health as well. So this has been shown to be a unique substance in cellular health. It's been tested for use with cancers, including breast, colon, and prostate cancer. So you may have a particular affinity for cyst formation in the uterus. Many women have this in their families. And frankincense, perhaps because it helps to regulate estrogen production in women, has been studied a lot for the health of the uterus and the health of cells. So look at some of these rigorous scientific studies. There's researchers from, I think it's called Leicester in the UK, and also I put their names below, Nicole Stevens and Dr. I'm going to say Su Kong Lin. So if you want to know more about the research on cancer, check these out. This is not going to cure cancer. Please do not, reject what your doctor tells you and just use frankincense. I actually know people who have done this and have not fared well. So that's absolutely not what I'm suggesting, this to replace allopathic therapy. However, this is wonderful to integrate. Cancer is a very complicated topic. It doesn't just come at people in one way. That's why it's so difficult, is because there's many, many different factors that take place, and it presents differently for everyone in all different types. But it's really promising that we are starting to research this. There's certainly a lot of talk going on about this being good adjunct. So if you're concerned about your cellular health, consider taking frankincense internally daily. And if you're a woman, a lot of women will use castor oil and put frankincense on their breasts after bathing. That's a really nice thing to do. And you can also take it orally, as I'd mentioned earlier, in that same manner is good to do. So I wanted to share a story from my family about frankincense. My dad actually has skin cancer, and it's on his head and all over his ears and face, and he was diagnosed first in the 1980s. So he's had this for a very long time. He's really good about going in regularly to see his doctor and have treatment. And a few years ago, I started suggesting that he use frankincense oil. I put some in a roller bottle. So the bottle was like half frankincense and half a carrier oil, like sweet almond oil. And he just put it on his head routinely every day. And he put a little bit on his tongue and had some internally as well. And the first time that he went to see his doctor, which is like, I think that he goes 3 times a year, they said that things that they'd marked on his skin had actually shrunk since his last visit and they didn't need to remove anything. And that was the first time ever since the 80s when he started doing this that he was told that it shrank or that he didn't need to have something burned off. So this is really exciting for me. I love that it's helping him and that he's doing it regularly. So I hope other people have similar stories to share. Please let me know if you do. I'd love to hear stuff like that. And finally, number 10, healthy brain. And one of the amazing gifts of frankincense is that in its chemistry there are sesquiterpenes, which are notable for their ability to cross the blood-brain barrier and facilitate oxygenation of brain cells. So, as you may know, inflammation and lack of oxygen in the brain can be associated with many different things, certainly with aging. Sesquiterpenes are also shown to increase the number of certain receptors in the brain, and having more oxygen can help reduce disorientation and help with long-term memory loss. It also supports the ability to focus. It's excellent to think of for brain recovery. So, if you fall down and you scrape your knee, there's things you can do because you can get to your knee really easily. But with your brain, if you hit your head, that's a tough thing to have any sort of home care for, and frankincense is great in this instance. I was recently in a car accident and got whiplash and was like, frankincense. I'm going to be putting it on the back of my neck every day, taking it internally every day, just really supportive as you kind of come out of the stupor of having a head injury. It's also good at eliminating the debris that could be giving misinformation at the DNA levels. It reminds our cells to be as they were once designed. And one of the really practical uses for this is for birth. So if you have a baby and you wanted to put frankincense on the baby to anoint the baby at birth, which is a traditional practice, I would use about 1 drop of frankincense per tablespoon. And I would put it on the baby's chest and neck and down the spine. And you can put it on the head, like the very top of the head is a great place, and on the bottoms of the feet. And what this does is it creates an extraordinary positive experience in supporting the adjustment of the baby being brought into the world. So from having the warmth and rhythm of being with the mom to being born into the world is a huge transition, and this will help the baby to be supported as its head, recovers from the actual physical part of childbirth, but also exposure to the environment, adjusting to oxygen, and to the mother. And remember that frankincense is the be here now oil, so bringing a baby to a little bit more awareness of its new place in the world is a really good idea. Also, you can use it for kids that have trouble learning or have trouble focusing. I actually, in some of my work with parents of autistic children, have 2 really positive stories to share. One mom put it on her toddler who had never spoken before, put it down his back topically, and he spoke for the first time like within an hour of the application. Another mom said her child sang for the first time very shortly after the application. So this is amazing for kids that are in that place. It's also really good for memory. My mom died of Alzheimer's about 1.5 years ago, and while she was ill, I gave her frankincense in a capsule, and she called it her talking pills because they helped her to get the words out. That was one of the first signs of the disease, and something she struggled with was saying what she was thinking, and she just felt like she could talk with a lot more fluidity, and it really supported her throughout the process of dying. So birth and dying, again, frankincense will help you be supportive for that. There's a lot of promise with looking at this for anything related to the brain and inflammation or lack of oxygen. And one thing you can do is diffuse for 10 minutes each hour in your home or in a room of a client. You can apply to your spine each morning. And there's also something called the aroma touch technique, and doing that twice a week can help enhance communication of the nervous system. Also, taking 2 to 4 drops internally daily is really good. And here are some that it blends well with sandalwood, valerian, myrrh, and rosemary and vetiver. And I wanted to note that the American Medical Association has said that if they could find an agent that would pass the blood-brain barrier, they'd be able to find cures for ailments such as Lou Gehrig's disease, multiple sclerosis, Alzheimer's disease, and Parkinson's disease. So I think this is something we're going to be hearing more about with regard to frankincense.